He pockets the faded ID card and watches the conveyor belts keep their slow, relentless rhythm. The factory smells of oil and warm metal, familiar and unforgiving. The notice board says reorganization. The foreman is kind but firm. You're too old for this job. The words hit like cold water. He forces a laugh, walks the floor as if memorizing every machine, every dent in the railing where an apprentice once leaned. Years of quiet fixes hang in the air. At home, the pension papers sit by a chipped mug. The sum is modest but hard-earned, decades of small savings. He studies a map of the town and the factory, places his finger on the office where the owner's name is printed on an envelope. Memory surfaces. The night he fixed a jam that saved a shipment, the apprentices who sought him out when the line faltered. Expertise, he realizes, is a kind of capital too. Night presses close. He folds the pension check with slow hands. Not surrender, but a promise. The owner is seldom present. Ledgers are left open. Decisions are made in distant rooms. A plan, stubborn and precise, begins to form. What if the pension could be a beginning instead of an end? He feels a quiet resolve, neither anger nor joy, only the sharp clarity of someone who has chosen action. As he circles a number on the ledger, his pen slips and reveals a hidden figure, enough to make the impossible possible. He waits outside the glass office the next morning, coat buttoned, pension check folded neatly in his pocket. Inside, the factory owner's son scrolls through his phone, hardly glancing up. "You're the mechanic they let go, right?" he asks flatly. The old man nods. "I want to buy your father's shares," he says, the words measured, steady. The young man's laughter fills the cold air. With what? Sentiment and stories. He slides the pension check across the desk. The laughter dies. It's not much, but enough to prove seriousness. The old man adds softly, "I know this place better than anyone. I know how to make it breathe again." For a moment, silence thickens between them. Then the son leans forward, amused but curious. "You think the machines will listen to you because they remember your hands?" The old man smiles faintly. "No," he says, "because I remember theirs." Something shifts in the room. The arrogance fades. The son studies him differently now. Finally, he says, "Come back tomorrow. I'll consider it." The man nods, walks out slowly, but his heartbeat is faster than it's been in years. As he steps outside, the morning light catches his face. Behind him, through the office window, the young man opens an old file, the maintenance log with the mechanic's name scribbled across decades. His expression changes. Inside that file, a note surfaces, written years ago by the owner himself. "If I'm ever gone, trust him to keep the factory alive." The next day, the factory hums faintly, the rhythm uncertain, like a heart skipping beats. He steps into the office again. The young owner's son sits differently this time, shoulders straighter, eyes thoughtful. The maintenance file lies open on the desk. "My father trusted you," he says quietly, "but trust doesn't pay debts." The old man nods. "Then let me see what's broken." They walk through the factory together. Rusted bolts, idle machines, workers with half-hearted movements. He runs a hand along a conveyor belt. Dusty, still warm from forgotten work. He starts asking questions. When was this line last serviced? Who maintains the dies? Who checks calibration? The younger man fumbles with answers. Each silence tells him more than words. In the control room, the old man spots a thick binder, an unbalanced ledger, half buried under invoices. Numbers whisper stories. Unpaid bills, canceled orders, supplies bought twice. A quiet theft buried beneath digital spreadsheets. Someone's bleeding the company dry. He looks up, eyes narrowed. "You said you're losing money. You're being robbed." The son blinks. "By who?" The old man flips a page, finger landing on a signature. "Start with the name you trust the most." Outside, the lights flicker. Somewhere deep in the factory, a machine groans to life, as if waking from sleep. The signature belongs to the man the son calls uncle, his father's lifelong friend and partner. Evening shadows stretch across the factory walls. The old man sits alone in the break room, a cup of tea cooling beside him, the ledger open to that same signature. He flips back through the pages. The handwriting repeats in different forms, each linked to small transactions, each cleverly hidden under false supplier names. It's not just carelessness. It's betrayal crafted with patience. The office door creaks open. The uncle enters, tall, silver-haired, voice smooth as oil. "You shouldn't be here after hours," he says, smiling like an old friend. The old man doesn't look up. "You've been bleeding this place dry," he replies quietly. The smile falters. "Careful, old friend. You're walking on dangerous ground." He stands, steady and unshaken. "I've walked this ground for 40 years. You just bought it yesterday." A long silence. The hum of distant machines fills the air like slow thunder. Then the uncle leans forward. "You think you're a hero, but you're a relic. You'll never own this factory. You don't have the power." The old man steps closer until their shadows merge on the wall. "Power isn't bought," he says. "It's earned in every bolt you turn and every man you teach." The uncle laughs, but there's unease behind it. "You have no proof." The old man smiles faintly, tapping the ledger. "I don't need proof. I just need the truth to breathe a little." As the uncle turns to leave, a hidden camera light blinks on above them, and someone's been watching the whole conversation. Morning light slants through dusty windows, catching the suspended mist of oil and sweat. Workers gather around the break room TV, murmuring. The news ticker scrolls, factory fraud investigation underway. The uncle's face flashes on screen beside the company logo. The old man pauses mid-step, breath shallow. Someone leaked the footage. The late-night confrontation now plays across every device in town. The young owner storms in, anger and confusion tangled together. "Did you record this?" The old man shakes his head. "No, but someone wanted the truth free." They exchange glances, realization dawning that one of the workers must have found the security footage and sent it out. Outside, cameras flash, reporters swarm the gate. The factory is suddenly famous for all the wrong reasons. Yet beneath the chaos, something shifts. The workers no longer look beaten. They look alive. One by one, they approach him, not as an old man, but as the one who dared to speak when everyone else stayed silent. "You've been fighting for this place longer than any of us," one says softly. The young owner stands beside him now, no longer above him. "We can still save it," he says, "but only if we lead together." The old man looks at the buzzing cameras, the flashing headlines, the faces watching with new belief. For the first time, he doesn't feel too old. He feels necessary. As the reporters shout questions, his phone vibrates with a message from an unknown number. "Meet me tonight. I can help you by the factory." The town sleeps under a thin drizzle. Streetlights glow like fading embers as the old man walks toward the abandoned rail warehouse, once part of the factory's supply line. The message had said, "Come alone." He hesitates at the rusted gate, heart thudding louder than the rain. Inside, a lantern flickers on a crate. A figure steps forward, short hair, leather jacket, confidence in every stride. "Didn't expect your savior to be one of your own, did you?" she says. It's Mira, the factory's former accountant, who vanished months ago after accusing management of fraud. "I've been gathering evidence," she explains, spreading out files across the crate. Photocopies, invoices, hidden transactions. They use shell companies to drain profits. "I tracked every cent. You can buy back the factory if you move fast, before they liquidate assets." The old man scans the papers, disbelief turning into determination. "With what money?" Mira smiles faintly. "Not money, faith. The workers are ready. They'll invest their severance, their savings, even their nights. They trust you." He looks at her, rain dripping from his brow. "You're asking me to risk everything I've got left." "I'm asking you," she says softly, "to finish what you started." Lightning flashes, illuminating her face. the same resolve he once carried in his youth. For a moment, he feels time fold, the old mechanic meeting the man he once was. Mira slides an envelope toward him. Inside is a notarized document, the first draft of a workers' ownership agreement, already signed by 30 employees. Morning breaks pale and uncertain. The old man and Mira stand before the factory gates, holding the signed agreement. Workers gather slowly, faces lined with fatigue, curiosity, and something long forgotten, hope. The air hums with whispers as the two climb onto an empty crate. He begins softly, his voice rough but clear. I gave 40 years to this place. They told me I was too old to matter. But every dent in these walls, every spark from these machines, has my sweat in it, and yours. The murmurs still. The owners stole from us. But we can take it back, not through anger, but through unity. Mira steps forward, holding the papers high. We've registered a workers' ownership bid. 30 signatures so far. If we reach a majority, the law says we can claim the factory before it's sold. A murmur turns into a roar. Someone shouts, and if they stop us? The old man's eyes gleam. Then we'll remind them. Machines may rest, but men don't. The crowd cheers, echoing through the yard like thunder. Even the youngest workers, once silent shadows, raise their fists. The old factory begins to feel alive again, every rivet humming with unseen energy. But just as the cheers rise higher, a convoy of black cars rolls to a stop outside the gate. The uncle steps out, flanked by security men. Enough of this nonsense, he calls out, voice amplified by a speaker. You're trespassing on private property. The old man stands firm. This ground was built on our hands. You just bought the deed. A tense silence. Rain threatens again. Mira leans close, whispering, we expected this. Keep them calm. The old man looks at his people, his family, and raises the signed document high. They can take the walls, he says, but they'll never own our will. The workers erupt again, louder this time, not in rage but unity. The uncle's men hesitate. No one moves forward. Above them, the factory whistle, long silent, suddenly shrieks to life. A sound so powerful, it drowns every doubt. Inside the factory, unseen hands pull the whistle lever. Someone from the management team has just joined their side. Rain hisses against the tin roof as the crowd begins to scatter. The whistle's echo still trembles in the air like a war cry that refuses to fade. The old man stands near the gate, soaked, chest heaving, eyes scanning the factory windows that suddenly glow with light. Someone turned the power back on. He steps inside, Mira close behind. The corridors hum faintly. Machines that hadn't moved in months are awake again. Oil scent, dust, electricity, the smell of purpose returning. At the far end of the production hall, a figure waits near the main control panel. It's Rafik, the senior supervisor, once loyal to the uncle, now standing with sleeves rolled up and grease on his palms. I pulled the whistle, Rafik says quietly, and I switched the power feed. The factory's yours to start again, if you still want it. The old man stares, half in disbelief. Why now after all these years? Rafik looks at the floor. Because I helped them hide the fraud. I thought loyalty meant silence. But you reminded me what real loyalty is. Myra's eyes soften. Then help us fix it. He nods and opens a side cabinet. Inside are old blueprints and inventory sheets, proof of the hidden accounts the uncle used. With this, he says, you'll have the evidence and the leverage. But there's one problem. He's planning to sell the machinery tonight. Once it's gone, no law can save this place. The words hit hard. The old man glances at the running belts, the lights flickering weakly overhead. Every nut, every piston seems to wait for his decision. We'll stop him, he says. Tonight. Mira looks at him in awe. That means breaking into the auction warehouse. He smiles faintly. I built those machines. I think I still know how to unlock them. Thunder rolls outside. Rafik closes the door and hands him an old factory key. its metal worn smooth by decades. You'll need this. The old man pockets it slowly. The key feels heavy, not with metal, but with memory. He turns to Mira and Rafik. Then tonight, he says, we take back what's ours. They step toward the door, rain still pouring, lightning splitting the sky open as if the heavens themselves are watching. The machines behind them hum louder, as though the factory knows its fight isn't over. Across town, in a high-rise office, the uncle takes a call. A single phrase slips through the storm. They're coming. He smiles darkly and replies, let them try. The storm had grown heavier by nightfall. Rain lashed across the factory district like chains. The sky split with streaks of white fire. The old man, Mira, and Rafik moved through the flooded alleys, their flashlights trembling in their hands. The uncle's men were already inside the auction warehouse, the very heart of what was once theirs. Through the broken windows, faint yellow lights spilled out, painting wet reflections on the mud. The old man paused at the gate, breathing hard. He wasn't built for nights like this anymore, the kind filled with fear, running, and ghosts of younger days. You sure this is the only way in? He asked. Rafik nodded. The loading dock on the east side. Security's light there. Once we're in, the machinery's stacked in Lot C. And if they see us? Mira whispered. The old man smiled faintly. Then we remind them what we built. They slipped inside through a side shutter. The smell of grease, oil, and rainwater filled the air. Around them, rows of familiar machines stood silent, marked with red tags, sold. Their numbers, their lifeblood, auctioned piece by piece to strangers. The old man ran his fingers over a lathe he'd once operated in his youth, the steel still cold but alive in memory. She used to sing, he murmured. Mira looked at him, puzzled. When the blades were sharp, you could hear it. A tune, soft but steady. He smiled through the ache. Like the heartbeat of the factory. They reached the far end where a makeshift stage had been built. The uncle stood there, flanked by buyers, men in coats, holding tablets and pens. He was speaking over the storm. Gentlemen, these machines are legacy equipment, vintage but efficient. Perfect for resale to foreign mills. Payment by dawn, transport within 24 hours. The old man's fists clenched. He's selling her soul, he whispered. Mira grabbed his sleeve. We need the evidence first. Rafik motioned them toward a small office overlooking the auction floor. Inside, flickering monitors showed camera feeds, and a pile of ledgers sat open. The old man moved to the desk, scanning the pages, invoices, transactions, and the missing pension accounts. Mira began recording everything with her phone. Suddenly, a shout echoed below. Hey, someone's up there. Lights flashed. They ducked, heartbeats pounding. Rafik killed the switch, plunging the room into near darkness. Boots thundered up the stairs. Go, the old man hissed. Mira slipped out the side door, clutching her phone, while Rafik and the old man turned to block the door. The first guard burst in. The old man swung a metal pipe. The sound of iron meeting flesh rang like an old machine starting again. They ran down the corridor, through a maze of boxes, until they found themselves at the loading dock, cornered. Outside, the rain roared louder, drowning the sound of footsteps behind them. Then, headlights. A truck engine roared to life. Mira was behind the wheel. Get in, she yelled. They jumped in as bullets cracked through the rain. The truck fishtailed across the slick concrete, smashing through crates and steel beams until it burst through the far gate in a shower of sparks. Sirens began wailing in the distance. Did you get it? The old man shouted over the chaos. Mira nodded, breathless. All of it. Video, ledgers, everything. Enough to bury him. For a moment, he felt younger again. The rain on his face, the speed, the fight. It wasn't rebellion anymore. It was redemption. They drove toward the factory, headlights cutting through the storm. Rafik leaned forward. We can't just expose him. We need to save the machines. They'll come for them before dawn. The old man looked at the road ahead, jaw set. Then we'll beat them to it. By the time they reached the gates, the rain had softened into mist. The workers were waiting, dozens of them, soaked, silent, eyes bright with fear and hope. When they saw the truck, they rushed forward, helping to unload the boxes of documents, ledgers, and proof. "We have what we need," Mira shouted. "He's finished." But the old man raised a hand. "Not yet," he said quietly. He looked back toward the distant glow of the warehouse, where the uncle's men regrouped in the dark. "He's not done. Not until this factory breathes again." He stepped onto the wet ground, his boots sinking into the mud. "Tonight," he said, voice breaking but strong, "we don't just fight for the past. We fight for what we still deserve, our dignity." The workers murmured, then cheered. Someone started the generator, lights flickered to life, and the machines inside began to hum once more. The sound spread like thunder through the night, the sound of rebirth. From the shadows beyond the gate, a figure watched. The uncle, face unreadable, his coat fluttering in the wind. He turned to his men and said, "Let them play heroes. By morning, I'll have their power cut, their ownership claim revoked." He smiled, cold and sharp. "And then we'll see who's too old for this game." As the whistle blew once more, the old man stood before the glowing machines, drenched and exhausted, his eyes reflecting the fire of their return. He whispered softly, to no one and everyone, "Let the world see what happens when you call a man old before his purpose is done." A flash of headlights cuts through the factory yard, government vehicles approaching. Myra's voice trembles, "Sir, they're here." The old man looks up, calm, resolute. "Then let's finish what we started." Dawn crept slowly through the clouds, painting the storm-soaked city in bruised gold. The factory yard was quiet now, except for the low hum of generators and the rhythmic clatter of machines coming back to life. Workers stood in clusters, drenched and exhausted, their faces glowing with something fierce, the warmth of victory's edge. Headlights cut through the mist. 3 government vehicles rolled to a stop. Men in dark coats stepped out, inspectors, accompanied by police officers. The old man straightened his back, wiped the rain from his face, and walked forward with Mira and Rafik by his side. The crowd fell silent. "Who's in charge here?" one of the officials asked. The old man's voice was steady. "I am." They handed him a document, a complaint from the company's owner, the uncle, accusing them of trespassing and theft. Before the old man could speak, a familiar voice broke through the quiet. "He's the thief." All eyes turned. The uncle stood at the far end of the yard, coat torn, shoes splattered with mud, face twisted in anger. "He stole my property," he shouted. "He ruined my sale." The old man didn't reply. Instead, Mira stepped forward and handed a folder to the inspector, the same documents they had risked everything to get. "Inside," she said, "are the real numbers, fake pension transfers, tax fraud, and unpaid wages. Every name, every account." The inspector flipped through the papers, his expression tightening. He looked at the uncle. "You'll come with us." The uncle's defiance faltered. "You think they'll keep this place running? It's dead. All of it. Dead like him." He pointed at the old man, but his voice broke. "He's too old to save anything." The old man met his gaze calmly. "Maybe," he said, "but old roots hold the ground when the storm hits." The officers led the uncle away as murmurs rose among the workers. Relief, disbelief, joy. Myra's eyes filled with tears. Rafik turned away, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. The inspector handed the folder back to the old man. "The accounts will take time, but your ownership claim has merit. With these signatures and the evidence, the cooperative can stand." He looked at the crowd. "If you're willing to rebuild it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, the workers stepped forward, grease-stained hands raising, nodding silently. The sound grew, boots scraping, murmurs swelling, until the whole yard echoed with a single word. "Together." The old man closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of it sink deep. He turned to Mira, who smiled through the tears. "You did it," she said. He shook his head softly. "No," he replied. "We all did." The sun finally broke through the clouds. Light flooded the cracked windows and fell across the machines, turning the oil-streaked floor into gold. The hum grew stronger, steady, rhythmic, alive. The factory was breathing again. Later that day, as the workers began cleaning the halls, painting over old rust, and welding new life into forgotten corners, the old man climbed to the top of the mezzanine. He stood there for a long time, watching them, the new generation and the old, side by side. Mira joined him quietly. "So," she said with a small grin, "what do we call it now? Not his factory anymore." The old man smiled faintly, eyes shining. "No," he said. "It never was." He looked at the vast hall below, voices echoing like music. "Call it our story." As the whistle blew, not as a cry of rebellion, but as a song of rebirth, the camera of the world seemed to pull back. The shining roof, the river beside it, the smoke rising not from ruin but from life. And in that moment, the factory didn't just belong to him or them. It belonged to every soul who had ever been told they were too old, too weak, too late. Because they weren't. They were just waiting for their time. And that time had come. The end.